hope you're all doing okay. Today I wanted to share with you some of the spreads I made for February, and I haven't read that much in a long while, so that was quite nice to be able to do several spreads. And I'm not going to hide that the idea of making spreads was a great motivator in me starting reading a lot more again. But before I start commenting the video, I wanted to announce that I've opened my Etsy shop. I announced it in my previous video, but I announced it at the end of a 15 minutes video, which I think is not the smartest thing I've made. So I just wanted to quickly say it at the beginning of this video. For example, you can see on the left of my reading journal this sticker. It's a magnolia warbler. And it's the kind of things I sell on my Etsy shop. I have stickers, I have cards, and I have bookmarks. I've opened my Etsy shop a few weeks ago, and it's been so great to send my little birds and my watercolors to like Canada, the Netherlands. I even sent one order to a little Scottish island. This was so fun. So if you would like to support me or my shop, you can go to Etsy. The link is in the description of my videos. If you don't like what I do or you don't want to buy anything, it's perfectly fine. And if you still want to support me, you can go to my Etsy shop, put it in your favorite, share it with your friends who you think would like it, and I'd appreciate it so much. Let's go back to the video. My first spread is about 3 mangas I read. They're volume 6, 7 and 8 of the manga Moriarty. I had started reading that manga a few years back. I read the first volume, but it was very violent and not at all what I expected. I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, and I've read a lot of things about Sherlock Holmes, and this was so far off what Sherlock Holmes is about that I was really put off. But 2 years ago, I found the next volumes in the series in the library of the school I was working at, and I started reading them because there wasn't much else to read. And I enjoyed them despite the violence and despite other things. So I decided to continue the series when I saw some other volumes at the library at the beginning of the month. And this was a nice read, but there are a lot of things that I don't like in it. And to decorate that spread, I didn't have a lot of things that would go with the theme of the manga, which is like 19th century detective story. So I went on Canva and I looked for things that would remind me of London or of the 19th century. So I printed this little Big Ben, this little crown thing. And they weren't difficult fussy cut. And then I remembered I had this sticker book that I bought at Michael's in Canada, and they had some London things which I think go well with any like period, and it's quite funny to use like an image of the Queen and then the crown with Moriarty, because the theme of the manga is basically nobles are evil and they must all die. I also decided to play with those Thai letters for the title of the review, and I like how it turned out. I only did 1 page for the 3 volumes because I didn't have that much to say, but I wanted to make sure to include an image of the illustration inside the manga, and I really like the illustrations inside. They're quite like classical shonen manga illustrations, but they're very, very nice to look at. I had forgotten that at the beginning of January I had made a little header for the beginning of the month, and Moriarty was one of my first reads for February. So I decided to put the February header on the right page because I didn't have any space on the left. But I just put the masking tape on both pages so that it looked that these pages were linked. And I'm using an offcut of my label. You've seen me using my label maker a lot in my previous videos, and you often have offcuts like that, and I don't throw them away. And I use my Posca pen to write on them. It's acrylic paint, so it doesn't smear and it dries quite nicely on the label. The next spread was made several days later, and I had started rereading a French fantasy trilogy called La Quête des Vilains, A Villain's Quest, and it's by Pierre Bottero, and sadly it hasn't been translated into English, but it's been translated into several other languages like Italian, German. I think it even has been translated into Polish. I'm not sure what other language it has been translated into. This series has been with me for almost 20 years. I started reading it when I was 15 or 16 in high school, and I had to sneak into the supermarket and read a chapter or two in the bookshop section. And for some reason, a few weeks back, I started to have a hankering for rereading it, and I hadn't reread it in 4 years. And finally, I decided to give it a go, and I reread the first trilogy and the second trilogy, so you will see a lot of Evelyn spreads in this video. I wanted to have the decoration be in sync with the covers. I printed the front cover of the first edition as well as the back cover because the two pieces are linked. And I didn't have a lot of decorations that would go with it, with the orange tones and the green tones. And I wanted something that went with the atmosphere at the beginning of the book where the characters arrive in a big fantasy forest. And I had these big branches, leaves, stickers from Journal Say that when I received them, I thought that they were so much bigger than I thought and that I wouldn't be able to use them. But in fact, they've worked quite nicely in those spreads. I wanted to arrange the sticker so that I could still see the page number at the bottom, but if I were to redo this page again, I would put the sticker a little bit more on the right so that I would have more space to write on the left. So this is only the first page I'm giving to this book because at that point I had finished the first book and I had started the second book and I had things to say about them both, so I basically meshed my reviews for these two books into a 3-page spread, I think. And I decided to innovate with writing the title with a dual tip marker, brush marker, and it doesn't really come off well on camera, but it's a lovely soft green, sage green color, and I really like how it turned out. It's very simple, but because I don't know how to hand letter, this is as far as it will get. I had a lot of things to say about this series, and I think I could have used more pages to talk about it, but maybe when I do my next reading journal and I don't have all the setup already done for me, I will give my reading reviews more pages. I don't know if you're particularly interested in seeing me writing the reviews. I've already sped up the footage like 4 times for this result, so tell me in the comments if you like these moments when I just write, or if you enjoy more like when I'm decorating the page. If you enjoy those passages, I will just put up some music and let you enjoy me writing. And this was quite a lovely 10 days when I was rereading the 2 trilogies, because I would read the book and sometimes finish them during the night, and the next morning I would set up my desk and set up my reading journal and I would write my reviews, decorate my pages, listening to soundtracks like first season of The Crown or How to Train Your Dragon, and it was just such a nice, relaxing experience. I've had quite a tough couple days, and this was a breath of fresh air in my day. For the next spread, I wanted to use the colors that they are on the second volume, as well as hinting that in the second volume they visit a city that's basically made of glass or jewels, and those stickers, those butterfly stickers that are reflective and transparent, and those like seal stickers went really well with that theme, and the stained glass windows obviously went perfectly well with that. I will not end up using the seal stickers because they're in volume and I didn't want to have to deal with that while I was writing on other pages. But I love how the butterfly and the windows went together. You've seen me using my craft knife to separate the backing paper and the sticker, and I've purposefully left it in the video so you can see sometimes how hard it is to separate them and how you can do it. I'm cutting that sticker because I wanted to overlap on the two pages, but if I were to stick it and not cut it beforehand, it would make turning the pages and having the book lay flat after that a bit more difficult. So I either cut the sticker beforehand or I then use my craft knife to cut it in place. And suddenly I thought that these little washi stickers that are labels basically would go great in my page because they were more of a purple tone and they appear very pale on camera, but they're pale, but they're not that pale. They're more pigmented in reality, and I thought the purple went really well with the covers. In fact, they went better with the covers than the like turquoise color of the butterfly in the window, but I ended up meshing the two and I like the result. I wish I had had more of those washi labels because I end up using a lot of those little circles because I think they add a nice small decoration to the page and they're an easy way to link both pages on the spread together. And if you've read those books and if you have those French books at home, those first editions, tell me in the comments because it's just one of those series that made me like starting my own novels. And I read the first book out loud to my little brother and then he became a fan and read all of the series. I gave the books to my dad who loved them too, so this was quite a nice family experience. And I needed one more page to finish the review of the second volume. This was filmed, I think, the next day, and I had printed this illustration of one of the newest edition of the book. And I don't really like the new illustrations of the book or the graphic novel of this first trilogy, but this illustration was really striking. The colors were gorgeous, and I really like the layout, so I decided to use it on my page. At that point, I hadn't started on the third volume, but I wanted to set up the first page in advance so that the next day I would be able to start reviewing the book without having to set up the page first, because sometimes I'm just dying to write down what I think about the book, but I have to start setting up the page first, and sometimes that's quite frustrating. So that day I gave myself a little grace and set up the page in advance. I've also discovered while I was rereading those books that Salim became one of my favorite characters. I've never really liked Camille, the main character, because she's so wonderful and she's so clever and she is so powerful. It's just quite boring, but Salim has been just a breath of fresh air. I've just loved him. And that day at night, I had to write another review, so I had to leave some space for the third book because I hadn't finished it yet. And that day, I had gone into town and I had read a graphic novel at the bookshop. And it was a fantasy graphic novel, the first volume in a short series, I hope. And it was called Les Semideus, I think. It's a French graphic novel, and it was quite nice. The universe was really interesting, but as it is the case with Franco-Belgian graphic novels, they're very short and you get very frustrated because you want the next volume quite quickly, but they usually get published like one every year or even more sparsely, and I understand the work that gets into a single volume, but as a reader it's still frustrating. And another day, another journaling, I decided to use my Commonplace book to write down some of the quotes from the trilogy that I didn't have space to write in my reading journal. And the spreads for my Commonplace book are quite simple. I started this Commonplace book trying to make it pretty, like in YouTube videos, but I decidedly like something more functional, and I just wanted to write the quotes so that I could put back the books on my bookshelves. And we're doing the third and last spread in this video because I told you I had read the second trilogy also, but when I started doing the spreads for the second trilogy, I didn't want to film myself. They're basically in the same design as these ones, and I just wanted to enjoy that little me time and being in my journal without filming myself. But I will show you how the spreads turned out after this. I filmed those clips in a different way because I learned from the last video that it can get really complicated to edit a video if you don't have several different clips for several different things. So I have different clips for all the reviews, and I've put them for all the spreads, and I've put them all together. Then I filmed separately, updating the different annex in my journal and the different things in my reading register. And these are going to be all together. All those clips are going to be together, even if they haven't been filmed together. So if you see a quick change in clothing or in lighting, that's why. And I think it's much more pleasant to watch all the things being done together than just cut up in the video. I will end up decorating that page in a way that links those two pages. They basically have the same color combo on both the pages, so I thought that they would work well together and it would make it less weird if their decorations would be linked. As promised, I'm finishing the video by showing you the spreads I did off camera. I read the second trilogy in the series, which is called Les Mondes d'Evelyn, Evelyn's Worlds, and I reviewed those 3 books. As you can see, they have quite a different color scheme, so this was an interesting challenge. So I left you here, and next I gave a full double page spread to the first volume, and I told you that I didn't like the new covers of the series, but except for the second trilogy, I find that they go really well with the theme, so I printed the original cover as well as the new cover here, and I reused my big leaf stickers, and I think they went really well with the page. Once again, if I were to redo it again, I would offset that a little bit more on the left so I had more space. But as you can see here, I reused the offcuts from there and there to glue here, which I think is a nice touch. I reused some of the washi circles here, but I didn't have a lot of them left, which was a pity. And I reused my favorite washi tape with the, what's it called? The fountain pen scribblings, because I started using them on this spread and added them on this spread here to link the 2 pages. And I thought that that this goes with everything basically. So this was the first volume. This is the second volume, and because the cover was so obviously purple and blue, I was able to reuse my sparkly butterflies. And I also used this lamp sticker because it was in the same tones, and the aesthetic went really well in my mind with the fantasy universe. I also used some of my map masking tape because they're basically going on a quest, so map masking tape just made sense. Once again I reused the offcuts of my butterfly here, on my butterflies here and there, and I put the new cover here. I innovate on this spread because I put the cover in the middle of the spread and I put the title on both pages, which was a big step for me. For the next book, I used a more green theme. Because the cover is kind of blue and orange, I wanted to do an orange theme, and I started writing the title in orange. But for some reason, I really did not like the result and the inclusion of orange things in the page. And I realized this was because on the previous spreads, I had always used 2 colors. I had the blue and the orange red tones of the craft paper. I had the green and craft paper, and here I just wanted to have the orange, which was a bit boring to my taste. So I added more of those green stickers and some gold dots, which I think go well with the theme. And that's it. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I also updated my books on shelves section here. I did not update it all the way because I wasn't feeling it, and I also updated, as you would have seen a bit, my review cover section here. I added all of these here, and voila, the video is finished. I hope you liked it. I had a lot of fun filming and making those spreads. Reading that much and just getting lost into the books, and then having some time to just do the reviews with some music was a wonderful experience, and I hope I can continue it. There is another trilogy set in the same world that I might be starting soon, so I might be doing other spreads, and I honestly can't wait. Tell me in the comments if you've read any of these books, or if you haven't, what are you currently reading? Tell me everything, and I'll see you next time. Bye!